The red sun of Frontier cast long shadows across the colony's main square as Jack Adams finished his daily ritual. For the 15 years since communication with Earth had stopped, he had sent the same message into space. Colony Frontier still. Active. 46 survivors, resources low, please respond. Jack removed his headset and rubbed his tired eyes. The communications center was little more than a metal shed now, its once shiny equipment covered in the red dust that seemed to get everywhere on this planet. A calendar on the wall showed 5,475 marks, one for each day he had sent his message with no answer. Still talking to ghosts, Jack? Mary Peters appeared in the doorway, her face weathered from years of Frontier's harsh sun and thin atmosphere. Jack shrugged. Someone has to keep trying. Mary handed him a cup of the bitter drink they called coffee now, though it contained no actual coffee beans, just local plants that tasted similar enough to remember Earth by. Mark wants everyone at the meeting hall tonight, she said. The crops in Field 3 are failing. We need to decide what to do before winter. Jack nodded. The colony had been established as a mining outpost 15 years ago. 63 people sent to extract rare minerals and send them back to Earth. The supply ships were supposed to come every 6 months. Then the messages about war had arrived. Scattered. Reports of an interstellar conflict that seemed far away from their small corner of space. Then nothing. I'll be there, Jack said. Just let me shut down the systems for the night. Mary left and Jack began the careful process of powering down the communications array. Electricity was precious now, with only 2 functioning solar panels and 1 wind generator still working. As he flipped switches and turned dials, a light flashed on his console, something that hadn't happened in 15 years. The signal detector was picking up something in orbit. Jack's heart raced as he quickly reversed, his shutdown procedure powering everything back up. He adjusted frequencies, checking and rechecking to make sure it wasn't a mistake or equipment failure. Please be Earth, he whispered to himself. Please. The signal grew stronger. Jack worked frantically to clean it up, to identify its source. When the computer finally displayed the results, he froze. The signal patterns didn't match any known human design. Jack's hand trembled as he reached for the colony's internal communication system. Mark, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. You need to come to the comm center now. 20 minutes later, the small room was crowded with the colony's leadership. Mark Wilson, once a mining supervisor, and now the colony's leader by necessity, stood looking at the readouts with a deep frown. You're certain it's not one of ours? He asked. Positive, Jack said. The signal structure is completely different. And look at the size readings. He pointed to a radar display. It's massive, at least 3 times bigger than any Earth ship I've ever seen records of. Could it be a rescue? Asked Pete Brown, their engineer. Maybe Earth made new allies during the war. After 15 years of silence, Ben Harris, head of security, shook his head. He still carried the standard-issue pistol from their early days, one of the few weapons they had. I don't buy it. Emma Jones, their doctor, leaned forward. Whether they're friendly or not, we need to consider what this means if they're hostile. She didn't need to finish the thought. With their limited weapons and no defenses beyond the natural landscape, the colony would be helpless against any serious attack. We need to prepare for both possibilities, Mark decided. Jack, keep monitoring their communications, see if you can learn anything. Ben, get your security team together, such as it is. Pete, what can we use for defenses, if we need them? Not much, Pete admitted. Mining lasers maybe, if I reconfigure them. They're meant for cutting rock, not whatever this is. Do what you can, Mark said. Everyone else, we tell the colony, but we keep it calm. No panic. We don't know anything. Yet. As the others filed out, Jack stayed at his station, scanning all frequencies for any hint of communication from the mysterious vessel. Night fell, and the red sun gave way to Frontier's 2 small moons. The colony's lights dimmed as people conserved power, but the communications center stayed lit and active. Just past midnight, Jack's console lit up again. They're moving, he announced to Mark, who had stayed with him. Coming into lower orbit. They watched in silence as the radar tracked the vessel's approach. It wasn't heading directly for the colony but seemed to be making a survey of the planet. "They're scanning us," Jack said, pointing to new signal patterns. "Comprehensive scans, atmosphere, geography, and here." He pointed to a particular reading. "They're focusing on the colony now." Mark's face was grim in the blue light of the screens. "So they know we're here." The internal communication system crackled to life. Ben's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Mark, Jack, you need to get outside now." They rushed out of the communications center and into the cool night air. Other colonists were emerging from their shelters too, all looking up at the sky. There, visible even without telescopes, was a light moving across the sky, far too large and bright to be a star or moon. "My God," whispered Mary, who had joined them. "It's really happening." Jack felt a strange mix of hope and fear. For 15 years, they had believed no one would come for them. Now something had arrived, but what? The light grew brighter, and soon they could see it wasn't just one light but many. A massive ship with countless illuminated sections moving through the darkness. It passed over the colony once, bathing them in a strange blue glow for several seconds, then continued to the horizon. "It's circling the planet," Jack said, "making a full survey before deciding what to do with us. Or to us," Ben added quietly. As dawn approached, the colonists gathered in the meeting hall. Few had slept. Mark stood before them, trying to project a confidence he clearly didn't feel. "We don't know who they are or what they want," he told the assembled people, "but we've survived 15 years against all odds. We'll face this together, too." A young man named Tom raised his hand. "What if they're hostile? What can we do against a ship that size?" Before Mark could answer, Jack's communicator beeped urgently. He checked it, then looked up at the gathered colonists, his face pale. "They're sending down a shuttle," he announced. "ETA 12 minutes. The colonists looked at each other in silence. 15 years of abandonment had ended. First contact with an unknown species was minutes away. Mark squared his shoulders. "Jack, Emma, Ben, Pete, with me. We'll meet them. Everyone else stays back, ready to scatter to the caves if anything goes wrong." As they walked toward the landing field, once used for supply ships that never came anymore, Jack couldn't help but think of all his unanswered messages. For years he had hoped someone would come. Now someone, something, had, and he wasn't sure if that was a good thing anymore. The shuttle appeared in the sky, larger than any human craft, descending slowly toward them in the light of the rising red sun. Its design was sleek but strange, with angles and proportions that felt somehow wrong to human eyes. "Remember," Mark said quietly to the small welcome party, "we represent all of humanity here. Let's hope they come in peace." The shuttle touched, down, sending up clouds of red dust. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a hiss of equalizing pressure, a door slid open, and the visitors stepped out into the light of Frontier's new day. The aliens that emerged from the shuttle moved with fluid grace that seemed wrong for their size. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders and lean bodies covered in what appeared to be armor rather than clothing. Their skin was pale blue-gray where it showed at their necks and faces with no hair visible. Their eyes were large and entirely black, with no whites or visible pupils. Jack counted 6 of them as they descended the ramp. 5 carried what were clearly weapons. Long, curved devices held ready but not pointed directly at the humans. The 6th, who walked ahead of the others, was dressed differently, with more elaborate markings on the armor. Mark stepped forward, hands open at his sides to show he carried no weapons. "Welcome to Frontier. We are a human colony. I am Marky Wilson, the leader here." For a long moment there was silence. The lead alien tilted its head slightly as if studying Mark. Then it spoke, in perfect, unaccented English. "We are the Vorax. I am Commander Drell. We received your distress signals." Jack felt his heart leap. They had heard him. All those years of sending messages hadn't been wasted after all. "You understood our communications?" he asked, stepping forward. The alien, Drell, turned those black eyes toward him. "We have studied humans for some time. Your language is simple." There was something in the way Drell said this that made Jack uneasy, a slight emphasis that seemed dismissive. "We're grateful for your response," Mark said carefully. "Our colony has been without contact from Earth for 15 years. "Yes," Drell said. "We are aware of your situation. The war with the Centauri Alliance destroyed much of Earth's space fleet. They have been unable to send rescue." The alien made a gesture that might have been meant as sympathetic. "We can provide assistance." Emma stepped forward. "You know about the war? Is it over? What happened to Earth?" Drell's expression didn't change. Jack wasn't even sure if their faces could show emotion as humans understood it. But there was a pause before the alien answered. "The war ended 5 years ago. Earth survives, though damaged. They are rebuilding slowly." Drell gestured toward the colony buildings. "We would see your settlement. We have supplies that may be of use to you." Mark nodded, though Jack noticed his shoulders remained tense. "Of course. We'd be grateful for any help you can offer." As they walked back toward the colony center, Jack fell in beside Emma. "They speak our language perfectly," he whispered. "Doesn't that seem strange to you?" Emma nodded slightly. "And they know about Earth, the war. How long have they been watching us?" The colonists had gathered in the main square, staring with a mixture of awe and fear as the aliens walked among them. The Vorax moved with precision, their eyes constantly scanning, taking in every detail. "These structures are inefficient for this environment," Drell commented, looking at the colony buildings. "Your technology is primitive." "We've made do with what we have," Pete said, a defensive edge to his voice. "Not easy with no supplies for 15 years. "Indeed," Drell said. "Your survival shows adaptability. This is valuable." Jack didn't like the way the alien said valuable, as if assessing goods rather than people. The other Vorax had spread out, examining buildings, equipment, even the soil and plants. One approached the small group of children who had been kept back from the initial greeting. The young one stared up at the towering alien with wide eyes. "Your offspring are small," the Vorax stated, reaching out as if to touch young Tom's head. Ben stepped between them quickly. "They're not used to visitors," he said, his hand resting casually near his holstered pistol. The Vorax withdrew its hand and stepped back, but Jack didn't miss the look it exchanged with Drell. "We would examine your medical facilities," Drell announced. "Our ship carries supplies that may help your sick." "We don't have much of a medical facility," Emma said, "but I can show you what we have." She led Drell and one other Vorax toward the converted storage building that now served as the colony's clinic. Mark gestured for Jack to go with them while he continued showing the others around the settlement. Inside the clinic, Emma showed the aliens their limited medical equipment, most of it old and repaired multiple times. Drell seemed particularly interested in the medical records Emma kept. "You have tracked genetic changes in your population?" the alien asked, looking at Emma's notes. "Yes," Emma said, hesitating slightly. "We've had to adapt to the higher radiation levels here. Some colonists developed health problems, but others seemed to gain resistance." "Fascinating," Drell said, the black eyes revealing nothing. "We would like to conduct our own examinations for your health." "That's not necessary," Emma said quickly. "I maintain regular checks on everyone." "Your equipment is inadequate," Drell stated. "We can detect issues you cannot." Jack stepped forward. "Maybe later, we should rejoin the others." As they left the clinic, Jack noticed one of the Vorax discreetly taking samples of the medicine bottles Emma had shown them. He caught Emma's eye, and her slight nod confirmed she'd seen it too. By midday, the Vorax had explored most of the colony. The colonists had moved from fear to cautious hope, especially after 2 more shuttles arrived carrying containers of supplies, food, medicine, and parts that might help repair some of their failing equipment. "These are gifts," Drell announced to the gathered colonists, "to show our good intentions." But as the day progressed, Jack noticed more and more things that bothered him. The Vorax asked detailed questions about the colonists' biology, their adaptations to frontier, their reproductive rates. They scanned everything with devices the humans didn't understand. And they seemed far more interested in the people than in helping the colony itself. That evening, while the colonists prepared a feast to welcome their visitors, Jack slipped away to the communications center. Something was nagging at him, and he wanted to check the signal records again. He was reviewing the data when Mary found him. "Jack, you should join the others," she said. "The Vorax are going to tell us about Earth and how they can help us." "In a minute," Jack said, not looking up from his console. "There's something strange about their signals. When they first arrived, they broadcast on frequencies that match our standard emergency bands perfectly. But how would they know those frequencies if they weren't specifically looking for human settlements?" Mary frowned. "Maybe they picked up our distress signals like they said." "Maybe," Jack said, unconvinced. "But there's something else. When their main ship scanned us, it didn't just scan our colony. It specifically focused on our genetic patterns. Why would rescuers care about our DNA?" Before Mary could answer, the door opened and one of the Vorax stood there, its tall frame filling the doorway. "You are required at the gathering," it stated. "Commander Drell has an announcement." Jack saved his work quickly and followed the alien back to the colony center, where the colonists had gathered around tables laden with the best food they could offer their visitors. Drell stood at the head table beside Mark, waiting until silence fell before speaking. "People of Frontier," the alien commander began, "we have assessed your situation. This colony is not sustainable. Your equipment fails. Your crops struggle. Your population is too small for genetic diversity." The colonists looked at each other nervously. "Therefore," Drell continued, "we offer you transport to a better world. All of you will board our vessel tomorrow. We will take you to a planet more suited to human life." "Leave Frontier?" Mark asked, clearly surprised. "This is our home." "It is a dying colony," Drell said flatly. "You will not survive another 5 years here." Jack spoke up, unable to contain his suspicion any longer. "Where exactly would you take us?" Drell's black eyes fixed on him. "To a settlement where other humans already live. Those we have rescued before." "Other human colonies?" Emma asked. "You found others like us?" "Many," Drell confirmed. "All now safe under Vorax protection." Jack felt a chill run through him at those words. "Protection? Or something else?" "We need time to discuss this," Mark said carefully. "It's a big decision." "There is nothing to discuss," Drell stated. "We will begin transport tomorrow. For your own safety, all humans will undergo medical examination aboard our vessel first." "Commander's orders." As the colonists began to murmur among themselves, some excited, others worried, Jack caught Ben's eye across the room. The security chief gave a nearly imperceptible nod. Something was very wrong here, and they needed to find out what before tomorrow came. Night fell over the colony, but few slept. While most colonists packed their few belongings, preparing for what many hoped would be salvation, Jack met with Ben, Emma, and Pete in the deepest part of the mining tunnels. These tunnels had been the colony's original purpose, dug to extract valuable minerals. Now they might serve as their salvation. "They're not here to help us," Jack said, keeping his voice low despite being half a mile underground. "I checked our old star charts against the signals they've been sending. The Vorax ship has been transmitting to a location that isn't on any of our maps. I found something too," Emma said, pulling out her medical tablet. "When they were examining our clinic, I noticed them taking samples of our blood stores. Later, I checked their medical supplies. The containers have human writing on them, but not from our colony." The implications hung heavy in the stale tunnel air. "Other colonies," Ben whispered. "They said they've rescued others." "I think I know why they're interested in us specifically," Emma continued. "My medical records show something unusual about our colonists. The high radiation levels on Frontier should have killed us years ago, but instead, about half our population has developed resistance. Our DNA has adapted." "And the Vorax are very interested in DNA," Jack added. Pete, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "While showing them around the engineering section, I saw one of them scanning our mining equipment. When I asked what they were doing, they said they were checking if it was safe. But the device was focused on the power cells, like they were checking what could be used as weapons. Ben nodded grimly. They've posted guards at each shuttle. They say it's for our protection, but no one can approach them. And I overheard 2 Vorax talking when they thought no one was near. They mentioned processing starting within 2 days. Jack felt sick. Processing, not rescuing. What do we do? Emma asked. Most of the colony is ready to board their ships tomorrow. They believe the Vorax story. We need proof, Jack said. Something concrete to show the others. I might know how to get it, Pete said, pulling out a small device. I modified one of our mining scanners to intercept their communications. It's primitive compared to their tech, but it might work if we get close enough to their shuttle. Ben checked his old pistol, one of only 3 weapons in the entire colony. I'll create a distraction. Pete, you and Jack try to get readings. Emma, you need to warn the people you trust quietly. Tell them to be ready to hide in the tunnels if needed. As they prepared to leave their hiding place, Jack grabbed Ben's arm. What about Mark? He's our leader. We need him. Ben's face darkened. Mark was taken to the Vorax ship an hour ago. Commander Drell said they wanted to discuss the colony's needs in private. Dawn brought chaos to the colony. The Vorax had moved up their timeline, announcing that boarding would begin immediately. Colonists were being organized into groups, each assigned to a different shuttle. Jack and Pete positioned themselves near the communications center, which gave them a view of the main landing area. Emma moved quietly among the colonists, whispering warnings to those she trusted most. Ben approached the Vorax guard at the nearest shuttle, asking loud questions about the journey ahead, creating the distraction they needed. Pete activated his modified scanner, pointing it toward the nearest Vorax communication device. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then the scanner beeped softly. I've got something, Pete whispered. It's encrypted, but wait. His eyes widened as he adjusted settings. This part isn't encrypted, it's... Oh no. What? Jack demanded. It's a manifest. They're categorizing colonists by age, health, and genetic markers. Pete's voice shook, and there's a section labeled extraction schedule. Jack felt cold despite the morning heat. Can you access any visual data? Anything from their ship? Pete worked the controls frantically. Maybe. Their systems are way beyond ours, but they might not expect us to even try. The small screen flickered, showing grainy images. At first, Jack couldn't make sense of what he was seeing. Then clarity struck like a physical blow. The images showed what could only be described as a laboratory. And in that laboratory were containers, dozens of them, each holding what appeared to be a human suspended in liquid. They're not rescuing colonies, Jack whispered. They're harvesting them. A shadow fell across them. Jack looked up to see a Vorax soldier standing over them, weapon raised. This activity is unauthorized, the alien stated flatly. Before either man could react, a shot rang out. The Vorax staggered, blue fluid seeping from its shoulder where Ben's bullet had struck. It didn't fall but turned toward the new threat. Run! Ben shouted, firing again. Chaos erupted. Colonists scattered as more Vorax appeared, weapons drawn. Jack grabbed the scanner and raced toward the mines, Pete close behind. Others followed, understanding that something had gone terribly wrong. Emma appeared from between buildings, leading a group of colonists, including several children. This way, she called, pointing toward the mine entrance. We've prepared supplies inside. Not everyone ran. Some colonists, either not believing the danger or too frightened to move, remained where they were. The Vorax quickly surrounded them. Jack paused at the mine entrance, looking back at the colony center where people were being herded onto shuttles. He wanted to help them, but what could he do against the Vorax weapons? Jack, come on, Pete called from inside the mine. With a last look at the colonists being taken, Jack ducked into the mine tunnel. 24 colonists had made it to safety, less than half their total population. The rest were already in Vorax hands. Deep in the mining tunnels, the escaped colonists gathered in a large cavern that had once been a break room for the miners. Emergency lights cast a dim glow over scared faces. What do we do now? young Tom asked, his voice echoing slightly in the rocky chamber. "We fight back," Ben said grimly, checking his pistol. He had only 4 bullets left. Somehow, Jack connected Pete's scanner to their old mining computers. "First, we need to know what we're dealing with. Pete, can you clean up these images?" As Pete worked, Emma organized their supplies. They had food and water for perhaps 3 days, basic medical equipment and mining tools that could double as weapons in desperate hands. "I've got it," Pete announced after 20 minutes of work. "The signal is clearer now." Everyone gathered around the small screen. The images from the Vorax ship were now much clearer and more horrifying. The laboratory was actually a vast chamber filled with hundreds of containers, each holding what appeared to be a sedated human. "Are they dead?" Mary asked, her voice barely a whisper. "No," Emma said, studying the images. "They appear to be in some kind of suspended animation. See the monitoring equipment? They're keeping them alive." "But why?" someone else asked. Jack adjusted the scanner, bringing up the partial Vorax communication he'd intercepted. According to this, they're extracting something from them, something in human DNA, specifically adaptive mutations. "Like our radiation resistance," Emma added. "They're farming humans for genetic material." The revelation left everyone silent for a long moment. "There's something else," Pete said, pointing to a different section of the communication. "Look at these coordinates. They've visited at least 7 other human colonies before us, and we've never heard from any of them," Jack said quietly. "What about Mark?" Mary asked. "He was taken to their ship earlier." As if in answer, the mining communication system, old and rarely used, crackled to life. "Jack? Anyone? This is Mark." The voice was weak and filled with static. "If you can hear me, stay hidden. They're not what they seem. They keep humans in containers for experiments. They've done this before. Many times. Mark." Jack grabbed the communicator. "Where are you? Can you escape?" "No time," Mark's voice replied, weaker now. "They're coming. Listen, they're afraid of the mining lasers. The frequency disrupts their tech. Use the lasers." The communication cut off abruptly. "Mark? Mark," Jack called, but there was only silence. Ben placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "He's given us a weapon. The mining lasers." Pete's eyes widened with sudden understanding. "Of course. The lasers operate on a unique frequency to cut specific minerals. If that frequency disrupts Vorax technology, then we have a chance to fight back," Jack finished. He looked around at the frightened but determined faces of his fellow colonists. "We need a plan. We can't leave our people on that ship to be processed." "The lasers are heavy equipment," Pete warned. "They're not exactly portable weapons." "Then we bring the fight to where the lasers are," Ben said. "We lure them into the mining operations center." As they began to form a plan, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in 15 years of sending unanswered messages into space. Purpose. For years they had waited for rescue. Now they would have to rescue themselves and the rest of humanity from the predators that had found them. The mining operations center sat abandoned, its massive equipment covered in dust. Jack remembered when these machines ran day and night, cutting through rock to extract the valuable minerals that had brought humans to Frontier in the first place. Now those same machines might save what remained of humanity. "The main laser array is still operational," Pete said, checking the systems. "We have enough power in the backup generators for maybe 3 or 4 hours of use." "Will that be enough?" Jack asked. "It has to be," Ben replied grimly. He had distributed the mining tools among the colonists: pickaxes, drills, and heavy wrenches that could serve as weapons. Not much against Vorax technology, but perhaps enough when combined with the element of surprise. Emma had sorted her medical supplies, preparing for injuries. "The mining lasers might disrupt their tech," she said, "but we still need a way to get our people off their ship." Jack nodded. "That's where I come in." He had spent the night working on the colony's old communication system. "If Mark could contact us from their ship, maybe I can send a signal back." something the captured colonists might receive. Young Tom, who had proven surprisingly resourceful, spoke up. "But how do we get the Vorax to come here? They're busy, loading people onto their shuttles." "We give them something they want more than random colonists," Ben said. "According to Emma's records, some of us have more advanced radiation resistance than others." Emma nodded slowly. "Yes, and based on the Vorax scans, they can detect the difference." "So we use ourselves as bait," Jack concluded. "The most genetically valuable of us." The plan took shape quickly. Emma identified the 5 colonists with the most pronounced radiation resistance: herself, Jack, Ben, and 2 others. They would position themselves near the colony's edge, making it appear they were preparing to flee into the wilderness rather than surrender. "The Vorax will detect your genetic markers," Pete explained. "They'll want to capture you intact. Once they pursue us, we lead them into the mining center," Ben continued. "Pete will be ready with the lasers. The rest of you will be hidden throughout the facility." "And if this doesn't work?" Mary asked, the fear evident in her voice. Jack met her eyes. "Then at least we tried. Better than being harvested in those containers." As dawn approached, they put their plan into motion. Jack sent a carefully coded message on all frequencies, hoping some of their people aboard the Vorax ship would understand. "Equipment maintenance at 0800, full power required. Emergency override. Wilson, Mark." It was a reference to the mining center's emergency protocols, named after Mark as the mining supervisor. Any colonist would recognize it as a call to the mining facility. Then Jack, Emma, Ben, and the 2 other bait colonists made their way to the edge of the colony, carrying packs and supplies as if preparing to escape into Frontier's harsh wilderness. They didn't have to wait long. A Vorax shuttle appeared overhead, hovering menacingly. Commander Drell's voice boomed from speakers. "Humans, your resistance is illogical. We offer survival. The wilderness offers only death. We've seen what your survival means," Jack shouted back. "We'll take our chances out there." The shuttle landed and 8 Vorax soldiers emerged, weapons ready. Jack noted they moved cautiously, scanning the surroundings. Good. They were wary. That meant they saw the humans as a threat, however small. "Surrender," ordered the lead soldier. "Commander Drell requires your genetic material intact." "Come and get it," Ben replied, then turned and ran toward the mining center. The others followed, making sure to stay just within range of the pursuing Vorax. The aliens were faster but seemed reluctant to use their weapons, confirming they wanted captures, not kills. Jack's lungs burned as they raced through the abandoned parts of the colony and into the mining complex. The facility was a maze of corridors and chambers cut directly into the rock. The pursuing Vorax would have to follow them deep inside. As they passed a junction, Jack nodded to Mary, hidden in a side passage. She pressed a button, and behind them, heavy doors slammed shut, cutting off the Vorax soldiers' retreat. "Split up," Ben shouted. "Make them divide their forces." Jack ran down one corridor, Emma down another. The Vorax soldiers hesitated, then split into smaller groups to pursue them. Jack led 3 soldiers deeper into the facility, toward the main chamber where the largest mining laser was located. He could hear the aliens behind him, their footsteps eerily quiet for creatures their size. He burst into the main chamber and dove behind a large piece of equipment. The Vorax soldiers followed, weapons raised. "Now!" Jack shouted. Pete, hidden in the control room above, activated the mining laser. A beam of intense energy shot across the chamber, not aimed at the Vorax soldiers directly, but at their communication devices. The effect was immediate. The aliens staggered, their weapons sparking and failing. From hiding places throughout the chamber, colonists emerged with mining tools raised. The battle was brief, but brutal. Without their advanced weapons, the Vorax were still dangerous, stronger than humans and with natural armor-like skin. But the colonists fought with the desperation of those who knew their very existence as a species was at stake. When it was over, all 3 Vorax soldiers lay unconscious or dead. Jack didn't have time to check which. He was already racing to help the others. Throughout the mining facility, similar scenes played out. The Vorax, accustomed to technological superiority, found themselves ambushed by desperate humans with primitive but effective weapons. Jack found Emma in a side chamber, a cut on her forehead but otherwise unhurt. 2 Vorax soldiers lay motionless on the ground. "Ben?" he asked. "Last I saw, he was leading his group toward the eastern section," she replied, pressing a cloth to her wound. Before they could look for him, the facility's old communication system crackled to life. "Jack? Anyone? This is Tom. Something's happening. The Vorax ships, they're powering up weapons." Jack and Emma raced to the nearest window. From there, they could see the massive Vorax ship in orbit, now glowing with energy along its hull. "They're going to attack from orbit," Jack realized. "They must have decided we're too much trouble to harvest. After all this, they'll just kill us all?" Emma's voice shook with anger. Pete's voice came over the communication system. "Not if I can help it. I've got control of the main communication array. If the mining lasers disrupt their tech at close range, then maybe a focused beam from our satellite dish might disrupt their ship," Jack finished, understanding immediately. "It's worth a try," Pete replied. "But I need more power, everything we've got." "Do it," Jack ordered. "Shut down everything except life support and direct all power to the communication array." As they gathered in the control room, Ben limped in, one arm clearly broken but a grim smile on his face. "We got them all," he reported, "at least the ones inside the facility." "There'll be more," Jack said, "and their ship is preparing to attack from orbit." Through the windows they could see the remaining Vorax soldiers retreating to their shuttles, clearly having received new orders. "The array is charged," Pete announced, aiming at their main ship now. On screens throughout the control room, they watched as the colony's old communication dish, once used to send messages to Earth, tilted up toward the sky. It began to glow as power surged through it. "Fire," Jack said quietly. A beam of energy, visible even in daylight, shot upward from the dish. For several seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Vorax ship in orbit flickered, its lights dimming momentarily. "It's working!" Pete shouted. "Their shields are fluctuating." Jack grabbed the colony's emergency transmitter. If there was ever a time to send a distress call, it was now. "This is Colony Frontier to any human ships," he broadcast. "We are under attack by hostile aliens called the Vorax. They harvest humans for genetic material. Multiple colonies already taken. Please respond." He had no expectation of a reply. For 15 years, no one had answered their calls. But perhaps if they somehow survived this, someone might eventually hear their warning. The Vorax ship's lights came back on, steadier now. It had adapted to their attack. "They're charging weapons again," Pete reported, his voice flat. Jack looked around at the faces of his fellow colonists, tired, scared, but determined. "We gave it our best," he said. "At least we die free." Emma took his hand. "At least we die fighting." As they waited for the end, the communication system suddenly erupted with static. "Copy, Frontier Colony. This is Warship Defiant of the Archon Fleet. We have detected Vorax activity in your sector. Stand by for assistance." Jack stared at the communication console in shock. Another alien voice, but this one responding to their call for help. On the screens, they watched as a new ship appeared at the edge of their sensor range, sleeker than the Vorax vessel but equally large. It moved with incredible speed, heading directly toward the Vorax ship. "Who are the Archon?" Ben asked, voicing what they all wondered. "I don't know," Jack replied, "but right now, they're the only hope we've got." As they watched, the new ship opened fire on the Vorax vessel. The battle had begun, but would these newcomers be saviors, or simply new predators coming to claim what the Vorax had found? Space above Frontier lit up with energy weapons as the two alien ships engaged in battle. From the control room of the mining facility, the colonists watched in stunned silence. After 15 years of isolation, followed by the horror of the Vorax arrival, the appearance of yet another alien race seemed almost too much to process. The new ship is outmaneuvering the Vorax, Ben observed, watching the tactical display Pete had managed to connect to their old sensors. But why would they help us? Emma wondered aloud. They don't know us. Maybe they're not helping us, Jack replied grimly. Maybe they just hate the Vorax. The communication system crackled again. Frontier Colony, this is Captain Lorne of the Archon Fleet. We are engaging the Vorax vessel. Be advised, Vorax ground forces may attempt to return to their ship or may target your colony directly. Prepare for possible ground assault. Jack grabbed the communicator. Captain Lorne, this is Jack Adams of Colony Frontier. We have already neutralized several Vorax soldiers, but more remain near their shuttles. Many of our people are being held aboard the Vorax ship. Can you help them? There was a pause before the reply came. We are aware of Vorax harvesting practices. Our primary objective is to disable their vessel and prevent escape. Once secured, we will attempt rescue operations. As if to emphasize the captain's warning, alarms began to sound throughout the mining facility. Vorax shuttles are on the move, Pete reported. 3 heading back to their main ship, but 2 are coming this way. Fast. They're not retreating, Ben said. They want to finish what they started, or at least take us with them. Jack made a quick decision. Pete, Emma, stay here and coordinate with the Archon. Ben, gather everyone who can fight. We need to get to the surface and prepare for their attack. With what? Ben asked, gesturing to their mining tools and the few Vorax weapons they had captured. If they come in force, then we'll die fighting, Jack said firmly. But I'm not giving up when we're this close. 15 years we've survived here, we're not stopping now. As Jack and Ben led a group of 20 colonists to the surface, they could see the space battle raging overhead. The Archon ship moved with remarkable agility for its size, hammering the larger Vorax vessel with precise strikes. But the Vorax ship was heavily armored and returning fire with devastating weapons of its own. On the ground, the situation was equally desperate. 2 Vorax shuttles had landed in the colony center. From each, at least a dozen soldiers emerged, led by a familiar figure, Commander Drell. They sent their commander, Ben said as they watched from the cover of a storage building. They're serious about finishing this. Jack studied the Vorax forces. They moved with military precision, securing the area. But something was different. About their behavior now, they seemed more aggressive, less concerned with capturing colonists alive. They're not here to harvest anymore, Jack realized. They're here for revenge. Through his portable communicator, Emma's voice came through. Jack, the Archons say they've damaged the Vorax ship's engines. It can't escape, but it's still fighting. And they say Mark is alive. They've detected human life signs in a secure section of the Vorax vessel. Hope surged through Jack. If Mark was alive, maybe others were too. Tell the Archon we need help on the ground, Jack replied. Fast. Before Emma could respond, Drell's voice boomed through the colony's speaker system, the same one Jack had used for years to announce community meetings and celebrations. Humans of Frontier, the Vorax commander said, his perfect English now carrying an edge of anger. Your interference has caused significant damage. The Archon are ancient enemies of the Vorax. By allying with them, you have chosen your fate. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will ensure your suffering is legendary. Friendly guy, Ben muttered. Jack looked at the determined faces around him. Colonists who had survived 15 years of hardship only to face extinction at the hands of alien harvesters. He knew what they had to do. Pete, he said into his communicator, can you get the mining lasers working on the surface? The portable ones, yes, Pete replied. But they have limited range and power. Bring them up, Jack ordered. And Emma, do you still have access to the Vorax communication frequency? Yes, but they've encrypted most of it now. Don't need to understand it, Jack said. Just need to disrupt it, broadcast random noise on their frequency. Let's see how they like fighting without being able to coordinate. As the colonists prepared their defense, the Vorax forces began to advance methodically through the colony. They destroyed buildings as they went, clearly no longer concerned with preserving potential resources. Get ready, Ben told the colonists who had armed themselves with mining tools and the few weapons they had. Remember, aim for their communication devices first. The first clash came at the edge of the colony, center. The Vorax, moving in tight formation, rounded a corner to find 3 colonists apparently fleeing. The aliens raised their weapons, only to be hit from both sides by colonists hiding in buildings. It should have been a one-sided massacre. The Vorax had superior strength, armor, and weapons. But the colonists had 2 advantages: Emma's signal, jamming, which made the Vorax communications sputter and fail, and their intimate knowledge of the colony's layout. Still, the battle was brutal. For every Vorax soldier they managed to bring down, a colonist was injured or killed. Jack found himself fighting alongside Tom, the young colonist who had grown up knowing only life on frontier. "Behind you," Tom shouted, swinging a mining pick at a Vorax soldier who had appeared from between buildings. The pick glanced off the alien's armor, but the distraction gave Jack enough time to fire a captured Vorax weapon. The alien went down, blue fluid, seeping from its wound. Across the colony, similar battles raged. The colonists fought with the desperate strength of those defending their home and very existence, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Jack knew they couldn't win, not without help. As if in answer to his unspoken thought, a new sound filled the air, the roar of engines unlike either human or Vorax design. A sleek craft descended from the clouds hovering over the colony center. "Frontier colonists, take cover," came Captain Lorne's voice. "We are deploying ground forces." The Archon shuttle's doors opened and figures leaped out. Humanoid, but clearly not human, with silvery skin and movements too quick for human reflexes. They engaged the Vorax soldiers with weapons that seemed designed specifically to penetrate Vorax armor. In the midst of the chaos, Jack spotted Commander Drell moving toward the colony's communication center, the building that housed their connection to the satellites and, potentially, a way to signal the Vorax ship. "He's going for the transmitter," Jack shouted to Ben, who was nearby. "We can't let him call for reinforcements." Together, they raced toward the communications building, dodging fighting pairs of Archon and Vorax soldiers. They reached the building just as Drell was attempting to interface with the human equipment. "Stop," Jack shouted, aiming his captured weapon. Drell turned, his black eyes showing no emotion. "Human, your species is an evolutionary accident. Your genetic materials are useful to us, nothing more. You are not meant to fight species like mine." "We're doing pretty well so far," Ben growled. Drell moved with shocking speed, knocking the weapon from Jack's hands and grabbing him by the throat. "Your defiance is interesting but futile. We have harvested humans for generations. You are not. The first colony to resist. All others failed." Jack struggled to breathe as the alien's grip tightened. Through darkening vision, he saw Ben attempt to attack Drell from behind, only to be swatted away with casual strength. Then a new figure appeared, in the doorway, silver-skinned and tall, but with a grace that the Vorax lacked. "Release the human, Drell," the Archon soldier said. "Your ship is disabled. Your forces are defeated. The harvesting ends today." Drell's grip loosened slightly as he turned to face the new threat. "Archon, always interfering in matters beyond. Your concern." "The freedom of sentient species is our concern," the Archon replied, raising a weapon unlike any Jack had seen, "as it has been since your kind began this abomination." With his last strength, Jack drove his elbow into a point on Drell's armor where earlier fighting had created a small gap. The Vorax commander grunted in pain, his grip loosening enough for Jack to break free and roll away. The Archon didn't hesitate, firing a weapon that sent Drell crashing against the far wall where he slumped, motionless. "Are you injured?" the Archon asked Jack, extending a hand to help him up. "I'll live," Jack managed, his throat burning. "But my people, the ones on the Vorax ship, are being rescued as we speak," the Archon assured him. Captain Lorne prioritized the detention areas once the ship was secured. Dawn broke the next day over a changed colony frontier. The Vorax ship hung motionless in orbit, now under Archon control. On the ground, medical teams, both human and Archon, treated the injured. Of the 46 colonists, 39 had survived. including all those who had been taken to the Vorax ship. Mark, weakened but alive, sat with Jack, Emma, Ben, and Pete as Captain Lorne explained what had happened. The Vorax are harvesters, the Archon captain said. His standard English was perfect, though his accent was like none they had heard before. They search for species with useful genetic traits and harvest them systematically. We have fought them for centuries. Why did you come here? Emma asked. How did you know? We detected their ship entering this system, Lorne explained. We have been tracking their harvesting vessels for many years, but your distress call helped us pinpoint their exact location. After 15 years of sending messages, someone finally heard us, Jack said quietly. Captain Lorne looked at him with what seemed like respect. Your colony's survival is remarkable. Few stand against the Vorax and live to tell of it. What happens now? Mark asked, his voice still weak from his ordeal. We offer you a choice, Lorne replied. The Archon Federation includes many species, including some humans from colonies we have rescued before. You would be welcome among us, or if you prefer, we can help you re-establish contact with Earth. Jack looked around at the colony, damaged but standing. For 15 years they had thought no one would come. They had waited for rescue, only to find themselves fighting for survival against one alien race and being saved by another. I think, he said slowly, we have a lot to discuss. But whatever we decide, Colony Frontier has proven one thing. Humanity belongs among the stars, standing on our own feet, and alongside new allies. As the red sun rose over Frontier, Jack thought about the message he would send today. Not a plea for rescue, but a declaration. Humanity had faced its first interstellar threat and with help had survived. The universe was wider and more dangerous than they had imagined, but also filled with potential allies. They were no longer alone, in the darkness, and they were no longer afraid.
The massive warship Steadfast drifted silently through the darkness of space, its hull scared and blackened. Pieces of metal and debris floated around it like a cloud of dead butterflies. To any watching eyes, the ship looked like just another casualty of the ongoing war between humans and the Coalition. Inside the bridge, Captain James Walker stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the main view screen with steady eyes. The bridge was dark, lit only by the dim glow of essential systems running on minimal power. The air was cold. They'd shut down all non-critical systems to maintain their cover. Status report, Walker whispered, though there was no real need for silence in space. Old habits died hard. All systems nominal, Captain, replied Tom from his engineering station. His fingers danced across the darkened console, making microscopic adjustments to keep their power signature as low as possible. The fake hull damage is holding up perfectly. Anyone scanning us will see exactly what we want them to see. Walker nodded slowly. The damage to their ship had taken weeks to prepare. Every blast mark, every torn piece of hull plating had been carefully designed to look real while protecting the vital systems underneath. It was an elaborate trap, and everything had to be perfect. Movement detected, sir, called out Lisa from the sensor station. Her voice was tight with anticipation. 3 Coalition battlecruisers just dropped out of hyperspace. They're at the edge of the sector, about 30 minutes out at their current speed. Walker allowed himself a small smile. Right on schedule. Status of our reactor. Cold but ready, Tom responded. We can go from 0 to full power in 15 seconds. The bridge crew worked in near silence as the minutes ticked by. They'd trained for this mission for months. Every person knew their role, knew exactly what to do when the time came. The plan was simple but dangerous. Appear helpless, draw in the enemy, then strike when they least expected it. The Coalition ships grew larger on their screen. They were impressive vessels, each one nearly twice the size of the Steadfast. Their hulls gleamed with polished metal, decorated with the red and gold markings of the Coalition fleet. They moved with the confidence of predators who'd spotted easy prey. They're scanning us, Lisa reported, reading standard salvage protocols. They think we're dead in the water. Walker watched as the enemy ships spread out in a standard salvage formation. It was exactly what they'd hoped for. The Coalition's arrogance working against them. They never expected a human vessel to be a threat, especially not one that appeared so badly damaged. "Incoming transmission," said Mike from communications. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Let's hear it," Walker ordered. A deep, authoritative voice filled the bridge. "Attention, disabled vessel. This is General Reed of the Coalition Fleet. Your ship is now under our control. Do not attempt any hostile actions. We will begin boarding procedures shortly." Walker didn't respond. The silence would make them think the Steadfast's communications were damaged. He watched as small dots began to appear on the tactical display. Boarding shuttles launching from the Coalition ships. "Multiple boarding craft detected," Lisa confirmed. "They'll be in weapons range in 5 minutes." The tension on the bridge rose with each passing second. Walker could feel his crew's anticipation, their eagerness to spring the trap. But timing was crucial. They had to wait until the Coalition ships were fully committed. "Sir," Tom whispered urgently, "one of the false hull plates is shifting. If it moves too much, they might detect our active systems underneath." Walker frowned. This was the risk with their plan. One small detail could give everything away. "Can you stabilize it?" "Working on it," Tom replied, his fingers flying over his console. "Rerouting minimal power to the magnetic clamps. There. That should hold it." The boarding shuttles grew closer. On the main screen, Walker could now make out their details. Sleek, predatory craft designed to cut through a ship's hull and deposit troops. The Coalition believed in overwhelming force, using superior numbers to crush any resistance. "Enemy vessels holding position," Lisa reported. "They're in perfect formation for salvage operations." She paused, checking another reading. "Sir, they've lowered their shields. They're not expecting any resistance." Walker allowed himself another small smile. Everything was falling into place. The Coalition's biggest weakness was their pride, their absolute certainty that humans were inferior. That pride was about to cost them dearly. "All hands," Walker said quietly into the ship's internal comm system. "Final positions. Prepare for Operation Phoenix." Throughout the massive ship, hundreds of crew members tensed in readiness. In the engine room, engineers stood ready at their stations, prepared to bring the reactor to full power. In the weapon bays, gunners sat at their posts, weapons pre-targeted on the Coalition vessels. Every system, every weapon, every person was ready. The boarding shuttles were now less than a minute away. Walker could imagine the Coalition troops inside, probably joking among themselves about how easy this mission would be. They'd be expecting to find a dead ship, maybe a few survivors to take prisoner. Instead, they were flying straight into the jaws of a trap. 30 seconds to optimal range, Lisa announced. Walker straightened his uniform, a gesture that his crew recognized. They all tensed, ready for his command. 20 seconds. The Coalition ships loomed large on their screens now, their weapons dormant, their shields down, their boarding shuttles exposed. They'd positioned themselves perfectly, exactly where the Steadfast's weapons would do the most damage. 10 seconds. Walker took a deep breath. Months of preparation had led to this moment. One way or another, they were about to change the course of the war. 5 seconds. The boarding shuttles were almost touching the Steadfast's hull now. In moments, they would attach their cutting tools and begin burning their way inside. "Mark." Walker's voice rang out clear and firm. "Execute Operation Phoenix." The bridge erupted into activity. The main lights blazed to life as the reactor surged from dormant to full power in seconds. Throughout the ship, the false hull plates fell away, revealing pristine armor and fully operational weapon systems underneath. The Steadfast transformed from a dead hulk into a fully armed warship in the blink of an eye. On the Coalition ships, alarms would be blaring. But it was already too late. The Steadfast's weapons were powered up and locked on target. The trap was sprung, and the real battle was about to begin. Walker allowed himself one final moment of satisfaction before giving the order that would change everything. All batteries, fire at will. The Steadfast's weapons blazed to life, streaks of brilliant energy bursting from its hull. The Coalition boarding shuttles never stood a chance. Half of them vanished in balls of fire, while the others scattered like startled birds, desperately trying to return to their motherships. On the bridge of the lead Coalition ship, General Reed stared in disbelief at his tactical display. The supposedly dead human vessel had transformed into a fully armed warship in seconds. His perfectly planned salvage operation was turning into a nightmare. Shields up. Battle stations. Reed roared, but he knew they were already too late. His ships were in the worst possible position, arranged in a salvage formation that left them exposed to enemy fire. They'd walked right into the humans' trap. Back on the Steadfast, Captain Walker was calling out orders in rapid succession. Target their engines first. Don't let them reposition. Tom, give me everything you can from the reactor. Lisa, keep those jamming fields up. I don't want them calling for help. The space around them lit up with weapons fire. The Steadfast's main guns pounded the nearest Coalition ship, its shots finding weak points in the enemy's hastily raised shields. The Coalition vessel shuddered under the impact, pieces of its armor plating torn away by the force of the blasts. "Sir," Lisa called out from her station, "they're trying to coordinate their defense, but our jamming is keeping them from synchronizing their shield frequencies." Walker nodded grimly. This was another part of their plan. The Coalition ships relied heavily on working together, combining their shields and coordinating their fire. By disrupting their communications, the Steadfast was forcing each ship to fight alone. The bridge rocked as return fire finally started coming in. The Coalition ships were recovering from their surprise, bringing their powerful weapons to bear, but they were still out of position, their shots not nearly as effective as they could have been. "Shields holding at 85%, Tom reported. "Those hits aren't as strong as they should be. They still haven't got their weapons fully powered up." Walker watched as another salvo from the Steadfast struck home. The Coalition ship to their right was in serious trouble, its engine section sparking and venting atmosphere. But the other two vessels were starting to maneuver, trying to get into better firing positions. "Sir," detecting power surge from the lead ship, Lisa warned, "they're charging their main weapon array." "Roll ship, present our reinforced ventral armor," Walker commanded. The Steadfast turned gracefully in space, just as a massive beam of energy shot from the Coalition flagship. The blast struck their armored underside, the impact making the whole ship vibrate. Damage report. Shields down to 60% on the ventral side, but armor held. Tom called back. "That was their best punch, Captain. They won't be able to fire that weapon again for at least 3 minutes." Walker allowed himself a tight smile. "Then let's make those 3 minutes count. All batteries, concentrate fire on the damaged ship. Let's take one of them out of the fight." The Steadfast's guns spoke again, this time focusing all their fire on the wounded Coalition vessel. Its shields, already weakened, couldn't withstand the barrage. Explosions bloomed across its hull as vital systems were hit. On the Coalition flagship's bridge, General Reed was furious. "How?" he demanded. "How did they hide all this? Our scans showed nothing." His tactical officer, looking shaken, tried to explain. "Sir, they must have developed some new kind of stealth technology. The damage we saw, it was all fake, carefully designed to hide their real capabilities." Reed slammed his fist on his command chair. The humans had outplayed him completely. His arrogance, his certainty that no human ship could threaten his force, had led them right into this trap. And now one of his ships was about to be destroyed. The damaged Coalition vessel's engines finally gave out. It started drifting, emergency pods launching from its sides, as the crew abandoned ship. The other two Coalition ships tried to move to protect their stricken companion, but the Steadfast's superior position made it impossible. "Enemy vessel is disabled," Lisa reported with satisfaction. "Reading multiple hull breaches and critical system failures. She's out of the fight, sir. Walker nodded. Good. Now for the others. Tom, how's our power holding up? Reactors running hot but stable, sir. We can keep this up. The battle continued to rage. The remaining coalition ships were fighting harder now, their initial shock replaced by desperate determination. Energy beams and projectiles crisscrossed the space between the vessels, some finding their marks, others disappearing into the void. The Steadfast took another hard hit, this one catching them on the port side. Warning alarms blared as damage reports came in. Port shield generator is struggling, Tom announced. We've got damage control teams responding, but we need to protect that side. Walker studied the tactical display. The coalition ships were trying to flank them to get to their weakened port side. But that movement was also an opportunity. Lisa, do we still have the port missile tubes? Yes, sir. They're operational. Load them with our special packages. Let's give our friends another surprise. The coalition ships pressed their attack, thinking they'd finally found a weakness to exploit. They didn't notice the missile tubes opening on the Steadfast's port side until it was too late. The missiles that launched weren't ordinary weapons. As they approached the coalition ships, they suddenly split apart, each one releasing dozens of smaller projectiles. These weren't designed to explode. They were electronic warfare devices, tiny but powerful jammers that attached themselves to the enemy ships' hulls. The effect was immediate. The coalition vessels' shields began to flicker and fail as the devices interfered with their power distribution systems. Their coordinated attack fell apart as their systems were disrupted one by one. Direct hits, Lisa called out. Their shield strength is dropping across the board. Their weapons are losing power. Walker straightened in his chair. This was the moment they'd planned for, the reason they'd let themselves take damage to the port side. All batteries, fire at will. Let's end this. The Steadfast's guns opened up with everything they had. Without their shields, the coalition ships were vulnerable. Armor plating melted under the barrage, weapons were knocked offline, and engines sputtered and died. On his flagship's bridge, General Reed watched in horror as his mighty force was systematically taken apart by a single human vessel. His tactical officer was shouting something about unprecedented weapon types, about tricks and traps they'd never seen before. But Reed wasn't listening. He was thinking about how badly he'd underestimated these humans, and how that mistake was about to cost him everything. The battle was reaching its end. The coalition ships, their weapons nearly useless and their shields gone, could no longer effectively fight back. The Steadfast's superior position and carefully planned strategy had won the day. Walker looked at the destruction around them with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. It had been a costly victory. Their ship had taken damage, and people had died on both sides. But they'd proven something important today, that humans couldn't be underestimated, that superior numbers and technology weren't everything. Sir, Mike called from communications. We're receiving a transmission from the coalition flagship. They're surrendering. Walker nodded slowly. Accept their surrender. Prepare boarding parties. He paused, looking at his crew. Well done, everyone. Operation Phoenix is a success. The bridge crew cheered, but Walker kept his eyes on the view screen, watching the coalition ships power down their remaining systems. This victory would change the war, he knew. After today, no one would ever look at a damaged human ship and assume it was helpless. After today, everything would be different. The boarding parties from the Steadfast moved carefully through the coalition flagship's corridors. Their boots clanked against the metal floor as they advanced, weapons ready. Even though the ship had surrendered, no one was taking any chances. Leading the main boarding team was Commander Bill Roberts, the Steadfast's security chief. Keep your eyes open, Bill told his team through the radio. Just because they surrendered doesn't mean everyone got the message. The coalition ship's interior was a mess. The battle had knocked out many systems, and emergency lights cast red shadows everywhere. Damaged circuits sparked in the walls, and the air smelled of burned metal. Every few minutes, the ship would groan and shake as its damaged structure settled. They encountered small groups of coalition crew members along the way, all of them sitting with their hands up, following surrender protocols. Bill's team quickly secured each group, treating them firmly but fairly. They weren't here for revenge. They were professionals doing their job. Back on the Steadfast bridge, Captain Walker was coordinating the entire operation. The view screen showed multiple camera feeds from the boarding teams, along with status updates from around both ships. "Sir," Lisa called from her station, "we're picking up some unusual readings from the coalition ship's engine room. Could be a self-destruct sequence." Walker's expression hardened. "Get me Commander Roberts immediately." Bill's voice came through quickly. "Roberts here, sir." "Bill, you need to get to their engine room now. We're reading possible self-destruct preparations." "Copy that." "Team 2 with me." Bill's team double-timed it through the corridors, following the ship's markings toward engineering. They encountered more resistance here. A group of coalition engineers who hadn't accepted the surrender. A brief firefight broke out, but the human team's superior training showed. They quickly subdued the engineers without any casualties. In the engine room, they found what they were looking for. 3 coalition officers were working frantically at a control panel, trying to override their own safety systems. Bill's team burst in, weapons raised. "Step away from the controls," Bill ordered. "Hands where we can see them." 2 of the officers complied immediately, but the third kept working, his fingers flying over the controls. Bill didn't hesitate. He fired a stun round that dropped the officer before he could finish whatever he was doing. "Engine room secured," Bill reported. "We've got some would-be heroes down here, but the situation is under control." On the bridge of his captured flagship, General Reed sat under guard, watching as human crews efficiently took control of his vessel. His pride was as damaged as his ship, but he was also curious. He'd never seen anything like the tactics the humans had used today. Captain Walker entered the bridge, his uniform neat despite the recent battle. He walked straight to Reed, studying the coalition general with interest. "Your reputation for tactical brilliance is well earned," Reed admitted grudgingly. "I didn't think humans were capable of such deception." Walker smiled slightly. "That's exactly what we counted on, General. Your belief in our inferiority was your weakness. We just had to play to your expectations." Reed nodded slowly. "The damage to your ship, it was all fake. A trap." "Months of preparation," Walker confirmed. "Every blast mark, every piece of debris, carefully designed to hide our real capabilities. We studied your salvage protocols, learned exactly how you'd approach a disabled vessel. Then we just had to wait for the right target." The general's expression showed a mix of anger and respect. "And those devices you used, the ones that disabled our shields, we've never seen anything like them. Human ingenuity, General. We can't always match your technology, so we find ways around it." Speaking of which, Walker turned to one of his officers. "How's the data retrieval coming?" "Very well, sir," the officer replied. "Their computers are providing a wealth of information. Battle plans, fleet movements, technical specifications. It's all there." Reed's face fell as he realized the full extent of the disaster. Not only had he lost 3 ships to a single human vessel, but now the humans would have access to coalition military secrets. This defeat would have consequences far beyond this single battle. Meanwhile, in the Steadfast's medical bay, doctors treated wounded from both sides. The human medics worked just as hard to save coalition lives as they did their own crew members. Several coalition soldiers watched in surprise as their injured comrades received the same level of care as the humans. One coalition officer, being treated for a burned arm, spoke quietly to his human doctor. "We were told humans were savages," he said, "that you didn't value life like we did. But I'm seeing something very different." The doctor smiled as she wrapped his arm. "There's a lot about humans you've been told that isn't true. Maybe it's time your people learned who we really are." Back on the bridge, Walker was receiving updates from throughout both ships. The situation was under control, but there was still a lot of work to be done. The disabled coalition vessel needed to be salvaged, prisoners had to be processed, and their own damage needed repairs. "Sir," Lisa called out, "long-range sensors are picking up more coalition ships. Looks like a response to the distress call that got out before we jammed communications." Walker nodded. They'd expected this. Time to arrival. At least 6 hours at their current speed. More than enough time. Start downloading everything we can from their computers. Tom, how are the repairs coming? We can be back at full fighting strength in 4 hours, Captain. The damage wasn't as bad as it looked. Walker turned to General Reed. Your reinforcements will find empty space, General. We'll be long gone, along with all your ship's data and some very interesting coalition technology samples. Reed looked at him sharply. You're not going to destroy my ships. No need, Walker replied. By the time your forces arrive, we'll have stripped them of anything useful. The empty hulks we leave behind will be a message, a reminder that underestimating humans is a costly mistake. The next few hours were a flurry of activity. The Steadfast's crews worked efficiently, downloading data, collecting technology samples, and making repairs. They also helped stabilize the coalition ships, ensuring no lives would be lost after they departed. As the deadline approached, Walker made one final tour of his ship, checking on his crew and the prisoners. He found them talking to each other, sharing stories and experiences. Despite being enemies, they were starting to see each other as people rather than just opponents. It's time, Walker announced when he returned to the bridge. Begin withdrawal procedures. Let's get our prize home. The Steadfast's engines powered up, their steady hum filling the ship. As they pulled away from the coalition vessels, Walker looked at the battlefield one last time. It had been a victory beyond their wildest expectations, not just in terms of military success, but in changing perceptions on both sides. Send a message to command, he told Mike. Operation Phoenix successful. Tell them everything is about to change. The Steadfast jumped into hyperspace, leaving behind 3 damaged coalition ships and countless shattered assumptions about human capabilities. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same. The Steadfast emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human-controlled space. 3 patrol ships immediately moved to intercept them, but backed off when they received the victory codes. Captain Walker watched as the patrol vessels formed an honor escort around his ship. Word of their success had traveled fast. In the ship's main holding area, General Reed sat with his senior officers, all under guard but treated with respect. They were watching a news broadcast that one of the guards had allowed them to see. The coalition leadership was in chaos, trying to explain how 3 of their best ships had been captured by a single human vessel. They're already calling it the Phoenix Gambit, one of Reed's officers said quietly. Our entire military doctrine is being questioned. Everything we thought we knew about human capabilities was wrong. Reed nodded slowly. We became too confident, too set in our ways. We stopped innovating because we thought we were superior. The humans never stopped thinking, never stopped finding new ways to fight. The guard watching them was surprised by their conversation. He'd expected anger or resentment, not this kind of analytical acceptance of defeat. Maybe the coalition forces weren't as arrogant as they'd been led to believe. On the bridge, Walker was in a secure communication with Fleet Command. The faces of 5 admirals looked back at him from the screen, their expressions a mix of satisfaction and concern. The data you recovered is invaluable, Admiral Stone was saying. Their fleet movements, their technology specs, this could change the entire course of the war. But there's something else, something we need you to know. Walker leaned forward. What is it, sir? Your victory has had an unexpected effect. We're receiving communications from multiple coalition worlds. It seems your treatment of the prisoners, combined with the shocking defeat of their best ships, has caused some serious political upheaval. There are calls for peace talks. Walker absorbed this news with surprise. They'd hoped to prove humans couldn't be easily defeated, but triggering peace talks. That was beyond their wildest expectations. There's more, another admiral added. Some of the coalition's client races are reconsidering their allegiance. They've seen that the coalition isn't invincible. Some are already reaching out to us about possible alliances. In the ship's engineering section, Tom was working with a team of technicians to analyze the coalition technology they'd captured. Some of it was more advanced than human tech, but not in the ways they'd expected. "Look at this," he said to his team, pointing at a power coupling. They focused so much on raw power that they forgot about efficiency. We could help them improve this by at least 30% just by redesigning the flow regulators. One of his engineers looked up in surprise. "Help them. They're the enemy." Tom shook his head. "Maybe not for much longer. And if we're going to have peace someday, we need to understand each other, both our strengths and our weaknesses." Throughout the ship, similar scenes were playing out. Human crew members and coalition prisoners were talking, sharing stories, finding out that they had more in common than they'd thought. The artificial barriers of propaganda and prejudice were starting to break down. In the medical bay, the coalition wounded were recovering well, thanks to the combination of human and coalition medical techniques. The human doctors had learned some valuable lessons from coalition medical technology, while the coalition medics were impressed by human surgical innovations. "Your people adapt so quickly," a coalition medical officer said to the human chief surgeon. "We spend years perfecting a single technique, but you're always trying new approaches, combining different methods." The surgeon smiled. "That's because we had to. We couldn't match your technology, so we had to get creative. Sometimes having less makes you learn more." Walker was in his ready room, reviewing the after-action reports, when Lisa buzzed him. "Sir, you need to see this. We're picking up massive fleet movements from coalition space." He rushed to the bridge, where the tactical display showed dozens of coalition fleet elements on the move. But they weren't advancing. They were pulling back, consolidating their forces. "They're scared," Lisa said wonderingly. "They don't know if there are more ships like us out there, more traps waiting to be sprung. They're actually retreating from contested systems." Walker studied the display thoughtfully. "They're not just retreating. They're creating space for negotiations. They want to talk, but they need to save face. This way they can claim they're repositioning their forces, not running away." In the ship's mess hall, human crew members had invited some of the coalition prisoners to share a meal. It was against regulations, but Walker had approved it. He understood the importance of these small gestures. "Your food is interesting," a coalition officer said, trying what the humans call pizza. "We never mix flavors like this. Everything in our culture is meant to be pure, separate." "Maybe that's the real difference between us," a human crew member replied. "We believe that mixing things up, trying new combinations, makes everything better, even if it gets messy sometimes." The next few days were filled with debriefings, data analysis, and preparations for their arrival at Earth. The coalition prisoners would be transferred to a secure facility, but already there was talk of them serving as cultural advisors for the peace negotiations. Walker spent time with General Reed, learning about coalition culture and sharing insights about humanity. They were building a foundation of understanding that could prove crucial in the days ahead. "Your trap was brilliant," Reed admitted during one of their talks. "But it was more than just the tactical victory. You showed us something we didn't expect: humanity. Your people treated mine with respect, even after defeating us. That's not how our propaganda said you would behave." Walker nodded. "Maybe that's the biggest trap we sprung, showing you who we really are, not who you thought we were." As they approached Earth, Walker gathered his crew for one final address. They stood in the ship's largest cargo bay, humans and coalition prisoners alike, all listening. "What we achieved goes beyond military victory," he told them. "We proved that courage, creativity, and compassion are more powerful than any weapon. We showed that enemies can become friends, that understanding is better than fear." Whatever happens next, remember this. Change starts with people willing to think differently, to take chances, to see beyond old prejudices. The crew applauded, and to everyone's surprise, so did many of the coalition prisoners. Something had changed in these few days. A glimpse of what might be possible if both sides could move past their fears and assumptions. As Earth grew larger in their view screens, Walker thought about everything that had led to this moment. The months of planning, the risks they'd taken, the lives affected by their actions. They'd set out to prove humans couldn't be underestimated, but they'd accomplished something far more important. They'd opened the door to peace, shown that different species could learn from each other, work together, find common ground. The real victory wasn't in the battle they'd won, but in the future they'd made possible. 6 months had passed since the Steadfast's historic victory. The Great Hall of the Earth Defense Command was filled with representatives from both human and coalition worlds. Captain Walker stood at attention in his dress uniform, watching as human and coalition leaders signed the preliminary peace accords. The journey to this moment had been challenging. After the Steadfast returned to Earth, both sides had to overcome decades of mistrust and propaganda. But the seeds planted during those few days after the battle had grown into something remarkable. General Reed, no longer a prisoner but now serving as the coalition's chief diplomatic advisor, stood nearby. He caught Walker's eye and gave a slight nod. They'd come a long way from that day when Reed had thought he was capturing a helpless vessel. The signing ceremony ended with applause from both sides. As the crowd began to mingle, Walker found himself surrounded by his old crew members, all specially invited for this historic occasion. "Hard to believe it all started with us playing dead in space," Tom said, grinning. He'd been promoted to chief engineer of the entire Earth Defense Fleet, his innovations with coalition technology leading to remarkable improvements in human ships. Lisa, now heading the new Joint Species Technical Exchange Program, nodded in agreement. The best trap we set wasn't the fake damage or the hidden weapons. It was making them see us as people, not just enemies. The success of the Phoenix Gambit, as it had come to be known, had changed military doctrine throughout known space. No one took anything at face value anymore. But more importantly, it had taught both sides the value of looking beneath the surface, of questioning their assumptions about each other. Walker watched as human and coalition children played together in one corner of the hall, part of a new cultural exchange program. They didn't see aliens or enemies. They just saw new friends to play with. It was a powerful symbol of what the future could hold. "Captain Walker," a voice called. He turned to find Admiral Stone approaching with several coalition officials. "These gentlemen would like to discuss your new assignment." Walker raised an eyebrow. This was the first he'd heard of any new assignment. The Admiral smiled. "We're forming a joint task force," one of the coalition officials explained. "A combined fleet of human and coalition ships working together to explore deep space. After seeing how your crew handled first contact situations and cultural exchanges, we believe you're the perfect choice to lead it." The implications were enormous. The joint fleet, sharing technology and expertise, learning from each other's strengths. It was more than just a military operation. It was a statement about the future both sides wanted to build. In another part of the hall, the Steadfast's medical team was deep in discussion with coalition medical officers. The exchange of medical knowledge had already saved thousands of lives on both sides. What had started as battlefield medicine had grown into a comprehensive program of shared research and development. "Remember how surprised they were when we first treated their wounded?" the chief surgeon asked, smiling at the memory. "Now we're planning joint hospitals on 3 different worlds." The changes weren't limited to military and medical cooperation. Trade routes were opening up between human and coalition worlds. Cultural exchanges were becoming common. People on both sides were learning each other's languages, customs, and ways of thinking. Bill, the Steadfast's former security chief, was now training the first mixed human coalition security teams. "It's amazing," he told Walker. "They're learning our adaptability, and we're learning their discipline. Together, We're better than either of us were alone. As the evening wore on, Walker found himself on a balcony overlooking the city. General Reed joined him there, both of them contemplating the lights below. "You know what the history books will say?" Reed asked. "They'll say the war ended because of a clever military trap. But we know it was more than that." Walker nodded. "It was about seeing past our fears and prejudices, about realizing that different doesn't mean inferior or superior. It just means different." "My people are learning that lesson," Reed said. "Slowly, but they're learning. Your victory showed us that there's strength in flexibility, in being willing to change and adapt. We've become too rigid, too sure of ourselves." Inside the hall, a group of scientists was presenting the latest results of joint human coalition research projects. The combination of coalition precision and human creativity was leading to breakthroughs neither side could have achieved alone. "Look at that," Tom said, pointing to a display showing a new type of engine. Coalition power systems combined with human control interfaces. 5 years ago, we were trying to blow each other up. Now we're building the future together. The new engine was just one example. Everywhere you looked, the cooperation between humans and coalition was producing remarkable results. Agriculture, medicine, space exploration, environmental protection. Every field was advancing faster than ever before. Walker's old crew had scattered to different assignments now, each playing their part in building this new future. But they still got together regularly to remember that mission, to talk about how a single battle had changed everything. "You know what I think the real turning point was?" Lisa said during one of these gatherings. "It wasn't when we sprung the trap. It wasn't even when we won the battle. It was afterward, when both sides realized we had more to gain by working together than by fighting each other." As the peace ceremony drew to a close, Walker prepared to address the gathered dignitaries. He looked out at the mixed audience, humans and coalition members sitting together, talking, laughing, sharing ideas. It was everything they'd hoped for and more. "6 months ago," he began, "we proved that appearances can be deceiving. A seemingly disabled ship turned out to be a powerful weapon. But we learned something far more important. We learned that old enemies can become new allies, that different ways of thinking can complement each other, that the future belongs to those who are willing to look past their prejudices and see new possibilities." He paused, looking at his old crew members, at General Reed, at all the people who had helped make this moment possible. The Phoenix Gambit wasn't just about military deception. It was about revealing truth, the truth that we're all capable of change, of growth, of seeing beyond our assumptions. Today, as we sign these accords, we're not just ending a war. We're beginning a journey together, one that will take us further than either of us could go alone. The applause that followed came from humans and coalition members alike. As Walker looked out at the crowd, he remembered that moment 6 months ago, when his ship had appeared dead in space, waiting to spring its trap. They'd achieved their military objective that day, but they'd also started something much bigger. The war was over. The future was beginning, and it looked brighter than anyone could have imagined.